Ever wonder what a homeschool class would look like if it was built on widely accepted leading academia teaching theories? I know I did. Theories that are part and parcel to the fields of education psychology, which can be quite dense. Theories created by leading theorists over the past 150 years or so. You know, Skinner and Dewey and Thorndike and Lev and Wegener and many others. I'm Dana Houston Jackson, and having just graduated at WU with a new BS after 14 years of persistence at various colleges as life shifted me around, I'm now on a journey for my Master's of Education in Instructional Design, Infotechnology at Western Oregon University. And one of my first classes in my program was Ed 611, which covers many teaching and learning theories as they have popped up over the years out of the education psychology field. Currently, I'm planning to homeschool my precocious 10-year-old son, Hunter, next year for his 5th grade. We homeschooled last year for 4th grade, and I was curious to know if I could consolidate the various teaching theories into a homeschool setting and how that might change what we're doing. So my examples throughout this presentation are of him and my application of these theories to him and for him. You have to keep in mind that formalized mandatory schooling for all children was not fully put into effect until the turn of the 20th century, and that schooling was built for mass output modeled on industry. Before that, the options were homeschooling or private schooling or maybe centralized schooling of some sort that could be miles or even cities away. Some of the most influential philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, Democritus, Quintilian, and many others actually, each discuss their views on youth education. And those can be difficult to implement in this industrial mass education model that our public school system was founded on. Views such as the need to take into account individual differences and unique characteristics of students, those sorts of things. But those things are very possible to implement in a homeschool situation. But all that aside, let's start with the big teaching theories of the past 150 years or so and how these could be implemented in a homeschool scenario. There's a load of theorists involved, so instead of slamming down a bunch of names, I'm just going to briefly cover their ideas as I understand them and how I think I can apply them to my homeschool scenario. We can start with Behaviorist because these guys are all about structure and predictability and routine and rituals and rewards and penalties and drilling. The idea being children are empty vessels waiting to be filled with the right stuff, and as we are the subject experts and our job is to be authoritative and know more than they do, then that's what we're supposed to fill them with. So the sorts of things that could be applied in a homeschool setting from this theory, things like strict schedules and classroom rules and math facts and drilling of rote memorization science facts or dates that you gotta know. So for Hunter, I used Excel and I put together a schedule that adds predictability and structure and routine and drilling. It gives a balance of what I find valuable within this theory while accommodating pieces of later theories. There are prize boxes for course completions, rewards, and I have to be careful, though, not to give attention or get too mad at his bad behavior because that's negative reinforcement when he wants attention. There's timeouts, or what's worse in his mind is the computer free time taken away for rule breaking. There are exams at the end of each course, but behaviorists go for grades and leave it at that. I take it a step further. I don't go for grades. If he misses a questions, we go back and we find out what he doesn't understand because 100% is the name of our game. This learning builds upon the next, and we want to make sure he's got it nice and solid before we move on. The next group of theories are really the cognitive or constructivism or schema theories, and these theorists are rational. Students are active participants in acquiring knowledge, and you can ask them to use it in the real world, and they can and will. And it's all about letting the students take part in their own education and designing of their own lessons. And then you adjust the lessons when learning opportunities pop up or interests go elsewhere. New knowledge is built on existing pieces of knowledge, which is the schema theory, basically. Teachers are just there really as facilitators and to facilitate the students. Hunter has to choose to learn. The teachers aren't authoritative downloaders like in the behaviorist theory. In this theory, learning is a process, not a product. This theory recommends that I show Hunter lots of audio and video and multimedia, infographics, and tools such as that to help him organize the knowledge that's in his head. Educators have to be creative and positive role models, and various cultures and their behavior and views in the classroom, they're supported and encouraged. Teachers have to push students out of their comfort zone and into their ZPD, or zone of proximal development, in this theory. It's where students can't accomplish tasks alone, but instead they need instructor help to get to that next stage of development. So personal ability is king here in this theory, and I push Hunter past whatever formal grade material he's in until we find his ZPD of that particular subject, and that's where we teach. I want Hunter to use debate freely. There's got to be formalized and informal but controlled debates. Hunter is really driving his own learning. That's what's supposed to be happening in this theory. Let Hunter question the facts instead of taking it at face value, and teach and practice logic, folks. In this theory, you got to teach him media literacy. And in fact, we just started a unit on this last week after I finished my course on it. And you got to teach them how to research. That we've been doing for a while. Then you challenge their findings when they're old enough to find the truth. But before 5th grade, I really didn't care what his answers were. I just wanted him to know that he could look, and it was okay to look and find an answer, period. And he wouldn't get scalded for a wrong answer. You know, even questions back in kindergarten like count the chairs, and if he came back with 1,000, fine. That's fine. At least he looked and he counted. He did the action and it was safe for him. Or how many books on bees are on the bookshelf, or how long is your hair, and whatever method he devised to measure it. Great. That's the whole idea. That in itself is a skill, to not be afraid to look and research. And part of this theory, it talks about prompting students to formulate their own questions, inquiry, and allow multiple interpretations and expressions of learning, multiple intelligences. And encourage group work and the use of peers as resources, so collaborative learning. It's all part and parcel here. For Hunter, I stole an idea, and I created a more formalized facilitator for his various subjects. This check sheet lists all the materials he would need and the various steps he needs to take to learn a subject. This is one I've written now for Earth Science, homeschool check sheet for him. This check sheet, it mixes multimedia and also application kits and drilling and theory, and he goes on at his own pace, and thus he's in control of his learning, but he's also in my control because the steps get him to look above and beyond his current understanding level. So I write one for every new subject he's going to be doing. There's pieces and places that I have to check his understanding, and thus he gets to have my input to move to higher understanding. Plus, and more importantly, I think I can quickly find his misunderstandings, maybe the terminology he didn't fully get, and therefore when he goes to demonstrate it, he demonstrates it wrong. It's a brilliant system. This last theory, these guys are the situative or pragmatic guys, and these guys are all about knowledge created by being in the social situation. Social interaction, socially mediated activity, apprenticeships, on-the-job training, internships. That's all part of this theory. How we've applied and will continue to apply this theory in homeschooling is Hunter is involved in junior rangers, and he has been since he was 5 years old. And now that he's 10, he soon can be involved in Boy Scouts. And this is perfectly in line with situative learning. I have him attend lots and lots of camps over the summer and various breaks when they're being put on. There's homeschool day at local museums and centers that he can attend and has attended quite successfully. Sports are part and parcel to this theory. Lots and lots of sports, individual and group sports, because those are social situations, social interaction, and so forth. I think most importantly are also the field trips to those sites that mean the most to his own personal future goals, whatever they may be for right now. Trips also reinforce education, of course, but they inspire, and they teach him something different that I can't in a classroom, or my classroom being my living room. For Hunter, though, it's got to be field trips that actually mean something to him, and that are really applicable to him. The more real-life situations I put him in per the situative learning theory, then the more actual applicable societal knowledge and skill he's going to pick up. Lately, because of Minecraft and Khan Academy and an ID Tech camp he went to, he was really interested in computer programming. So when his father took a business trip down to California, he took him with him and showed him Silicon Valley. And he got to the idea of what it was like and what it felt like to live there and tour the place and what type of people work there and so forth. And yeah, he's not a teenager, so it's not like I could sign him up for an internship there. But for 10 years old, to be able to see and be in and look and observe where you might want to work or what you might want to be involved in, that is what situative learning is all about. Another example is yesterday my son came to me wanting to start an online business, and after reading some particular email he received online, after researching the company with him, it showed him and convinced him not to spend his $25 on a marketing scam. But then I set up a meeting next week with a neighbor that does have a valid online business, and she agreed to show him the business and teach him what it would take to have an online business. That's situative learning. So in summary, yes, it's actually quite easy to apply the formalized teaching and learning theories to a homeschool classroom. There's no one theory that dictates your every move as an educator. I mean, that's the art of it. In fact, it's probably easier to apply these various learning theories in a homeschool situation than in a public school situation. When you homeschool, you have the freedom to pick and choose and blend theories to ensure that the most important outcome is actually achieved, which brings me to the article in that particular class that was the most valid for me and important, which was Pugh's and Girard's transformative aesthetic experience being the goal for us as educators. So that's what I really want to happen within my student and my son, is that transformative aesthetic experience for each class that we do.